Welcome back for another episode of Sunday SoulDay, fueling your mind, body, and soul with soulful conversations and life-changing insights. Today's episode is brought to you by Holy Hydrogen, the leaders in next-level wellness technology. Hydrogen is the lightest and most abundant element in the universe, and it plays a powerful role in how our bodies function. The Lord's HydroFix Premium Edition, engineered in Japan, delivers ultra-pure hydrogen both as hydrogen-rich water and inhalable gas. It's backed by exceptional materials, third-party testing, and has some life-changing benefits such as reduced inflammation, improved circulation, boosted energy, and more. And right now, their biggest sale of the year is happening. Starting today through December 3rd, you can get up to $500 off your HydroFix Premium Edition. Just be sure to use my code Damesha100 at checkout. Upgrade your wellness and start feeling better today. Get ready, because this is one of the most powerful conversations I've had on Sunday SoulDay. Two Bay Area legends, two lifelong friends, two men who's dominated in their fields and rebuilt themselves from inside out. Brian Schwartz, 7 times undefeated world kickboxing champion, master trainer, champion of discipline, and founder of Undisputed Boxing Gym in Redwood City. Javier Laval, creative director, celebrity event producer, entrepreneur, founder of Android Homme and FutureStreams, and now co-founder of Undisputed Boxing Gym. Together, they're building more than a gym. They're building a movement of healing, performance, reinvention, and community. I can't wait for you to meet them. Let's welcome them to the show. Welcome to Sunday SoulDay, Brian and Javier.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Excited to be here.
Oh my goodness. I am so excited to have this conversation, especially with you, Brian. I haven't seen you in I don't know how many years. It's been so long since we connected, but I'm so glad that I came across your social media, been following you and watching all the incredible things that you're doing. So
It's been way too long. Although I don't feel like you've aged at all. I look at you and I can see it like it's like 20 years and it's like nothing.
love it. No, it's amazing. And for the audience who doesn't know, like I met Brian back when he was a teenager, and he was doing taekwondo with my sister and my brother. And so it's been a lot of years, but a lot of incredible things that have happened since. I wanted to first just start with, how did the two of you meet? You guys have such different backgrounds and then came back together. So I want to know, how did you guys meet?
It's a interesting story, not as complicated as people may think, but we went to middle school together. We grew up in the same neighborhood, small town in the peninsula, putting Foster City on the map. And it was just kind of kids. It was a small town, so kids were, we all knew each other. We would play and fight and just kind of do the things that we would do as kids.
Oh, I'm just gonna jump in. Well, you can keep telling the story, but he was like the cool kid, right? And I was kind of a late bloomer, right? So he was like star athlete, like most yearbook, most athletic, most successful athlete out there, right? And I was struggling along trying to find my way back then.
It is accurate, right? Because I was playing football at the time as in Pop Warner, and Roger Craig was like one of my idols, right? Still is to this day. But I kind of blossomed early in terms of my speed and coordination, and but I didn't grow an inch, right? So I stayed, at around 5'7", 5'8", and Brian took off, and he was a little awkward, early years. When I turned my back, he was world champion, kickboxing. It was like unbelievable, because he definitely was not that guy. He was not the most likely to do what he's done. So in that regard, I respect him to the utmost, because I was there when he was kind of the guy that everybody was picking last on the basketball court,
It was last.
But see, what is interesting? I think you are growing into your body, and I think people that shoot up like that, they have to, it takes them a minute to grow into their body. My brother is like 6'6", and it took him a minute to grow into his body. But once he did, it's like beast mode.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a true story. I mean, I grew 2 inches after high school.
My gosh.
Right. But for sure, I was long and gangly and just super uncoordinated. But the consistent the martial arts, for all the years we did, finally started clicking, and it
Yeah.
all kind of came together.
Talk to me about that because you began training in Taekwondo at a pretty young age and then earned your black belt at age 15. Like, what first drew you to martial arts to begin with? Because you're playing sports with this guy here, like what even drew you to martial arts?
So my dad took me to see a Bruce Lee movie uh, when I was
Yes.
4. Right, I was 4 years old. I'm sorry, excuse me. I was 5 years old. 5 years old. He took me to see a Bruce Lee movie. I wanted to do karate after seeing that, and so he said, "Hey, look, you got to wait till you're 6 on your sixth birthday. If you're 6 and you still want to do it, then we'll do it." So my 6th birthday came around, and I was like, Pop, I want to do karate. And so he signed me up at this old school, like traditional karate school in Millbrae, before I moved to Foster City. And I started there, and I was like the worst in the class, like so bad that the instructor told my dad, he was like, "Oh, maybe you should look for another sport for him." Like, it was that bad, right? So, and I was there for 3 years, and then we moved to Foster City, and it was kind of a big commute for us to go back. So we'd found this school in Foster City, it was Mikowski's Taekwondo, which eventually turned into Golden State Taekwondo, and I started training there when I was 10. And same story, really. Kind of the head instructor was like, like, I don't know if this is the right thing for him. He's never going to get his black belt because he can't fight, which is kind of which is kind of funny, right? But I loved it. And I loved the discipline. I loved I loved how structured everything was. The instructors were tough, and I looked up to that, and I wanted to be that so badly. I wanted to be badass, and so I just kept coming, and over time I stopped becoming the worst, and it was like the second worst, and then pretty soon it just I kind of grew into my body a little bit, and it started clicking maybe around about 15.
Wow.
Um, when I got my black belt, but I had already failed my black belt test twice before I,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah,
Oh,
I had
that's
failed
so
it
weird.
twice.
Well,
Um,
shout out to Chris and Debbie Peterson because oh man, they
the best,
had
the best.
incredible studio and just
Yeah,
good people, good coaches, everything. So shout out to
for sure.
them.
No,
Uh,
they were absolutely the best instructors. Like Chris, Mr. Jensen, I
yes,
mean, the way he works with kids, and you can see because he's had so many great martial artists over the years. Um, what a great instructor was, and he just knew how to keep it structured and fun, and keeps kids engaged. I mean, I'm 51 years old, and I still love it, and I feel like it's from those teachings that he gave.
absolutely. How do you
Yeah.
think that shaped your mindset as an athlete and later as a coach?
The the just the
Discipline of it all.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes who you are, right? So, you're a creature of habit, right? Become you're disciplined by coming to the class and teaching the structure. It just starts becoming who you are, and I feel like the martial arts set the way for me to be successful in everything that we do because of that discipline and mindset that they teach.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, and Javier, you've worked with icons like Usher and Jay-Z and Kanye and so many incredible names. I could just keep going. But what parallels do you see between your creative excellence in entertainment and also just the discipline of martial arts, boxing, and business?
Yeah, I mean, the funny story, kind of piggybacking Brian's story, is I lived, 5 minutes from that studio, and I would ride my bike or drive by, look in the window, and I begged my dad to put me in because it was all about kung fu and ninjutsu. We were watching all these ninja movies, and I was a ninja for 4 Halloween straight. Like, I'm like doing the bars, the monkey bars. I'm climbing the roof, throwing ninja stars at my wall, right? I made my own nunchucks. I was a total like karate, martial arts nerd, but unfortunately my parents couldn't afford it and they felt like group sports was more affordable and I started to do well there and I never really kind of looked back at that passion that I was just authentically brewing. And so that's how kind of I went this way, he went that way, right? He stayed connected to that, but I stayed connected to sports and that discipline throughout high school and into college where I played basketball and broke my wrist first season. And so once that was over, I moved to Hollywood and started my career in, I guess, entertainment. I didn't really quite know what I was going to do. I had just kind of traveled out there with the same dreams that everybody else travels there with, right? I didn't aspire to be an actor because I suck, and so I was like, "Hey, you should be an actor." I was like, "No, definitely not. That's not the role for me. That's not the path." But I was able to kind of work with these market leaders, these key influencers, just through the same type of discipline that Brian kind of elaborated in terms of the martial arts business and martial arts business and boxing business and professional sports are hand in hand. You got to have the exact same type of mindset to succeed, right? Because the physical body will follow whatever you tell it to follow. So if you say, hey, we're going to go run a marathon today, the body will follow. It could be painful, but as long as the mind is like, we're doing it, right? Same with business. We could say, hey, we're going to achieve this goal. We're going to build this company. We're going to do all this, right? And it's hard. The path is hard. There's all types of obstacles. There's pain involved. But if you got the mindset that says, well, it doesn't really matter, right? We're going to figure it out, or for every problem, there's a solution, then you get to where you want to go. And that's kind of how I went into that area in that really competitive space of Hollywood where everyone's trying to like hustle. And I just kind of knew that I mentally was fit for whatever it is that I set my mind to.
I love that. And it's so beautifully articulated because I'm like, I believe sports really sets the foundation for so many other things, and even if we start off like Brian not getting picked, it still lays out this incredible foundation, for you just the way that you believe in yourself too, like having that self-belief. And I think that's where it starts, it's like having that belief in yourself, to even try the sport. Like Brian, keep going at it. Even when people say, hey, he's not that good, you keep going at it. You build up that, that muscle, that tolerance, for the pain, the hard times. So then when you show up in business and other industries, you still have that mentality. So I love that you touched on that.
Yeah, and I think just to kind of toot his horn a little bit, right, is that, throughout my life, I was kind of like, it was like, all right, Jav, you're good, and I was supposed to succeed, right? And I think if I didn't succeed, people would have been surprised, like, oh, he, kind of had a nice environment, his two parents in the home, and there was, really kind of a good fit, and yet I followed the path, right? I had some deviations and things of that nature, as we all do, but he wasn't really kind of set up to succeed in that way, right? So that's what kind of makes me respect him even more, right? Because if he was just kind of a natural, and there's a lot of athletes that make it to the pro level that he made it to and become world champions or football player, but they always kind of had it, right? So for this guy to not have it, and everybody knows, right? It was no secret. And for him to have that kind of discipline and that type of like, I don't care, I'm gonna be the best that I can be against the odds. It just kind of, I always have just the utmost respect for him in that regard. Like that's harder, in my opinion, than kind of
No,
having
it
all the
is.
tools, all the support, and people patting you on the back saying, yeah, you can do it. Or they're saying, bro, you suck. You need to quit. Like,
Yeah.
stop. And he's like, no. It's time to kind of form a union in what we're doing here at Undisputed. But it's all mindset, right? Like
No,
that's the
absolutely.
biggest thing for me.
No, it's so beautiful you touched on that because it is so true. It's like it's so easy to rest on your laurels when things come easy to you. But when
Hmm.
they don't, and you have to work 10 times harder to get it, it's that hunger you can't teach. It's that dog in you. You cannot teach. You can't teach that, you
Yeah.
know? And so I respect anybody that has to, any underdog really, and there's so many of them, but it's so easy to fall back on talent, which so many athletes do. You see it and they're lazy, Like, so, I mean, not to call anybody out, but it's the truth, So, like,
That's when you can find like someone that's talented with good work
yes.
ethic. That's when you get the
Like,
special players, right?
yes, and I know you've worked with some that we'll probably touch on, but you retired. I mean, talking about having an undefeated, I mean, like I'm still blown away. Undefeated, 18-0, like a rare feat in any sport. Okay, so shout out to you, first of all. Like, what habits or mindset do you think even allowed you to stay consistent and perform at that level? Because even after you started getting some wins, right? Like to stay at that level, that's a whole nother mindset, a whole nother level. Talk to us about that.
It's interesting, and just being real. Like, I mean, I could get out here and saying like the motivational, like the stuff
Oh,
that goes on on Instagram. But to be honest, like for me, what drove me was because I was such a late bloomer. Uh, and when I started excelling, like it was like the first time ever, like where I kind of felt special in a way, like if that makes sense. Like I all of a sudden now was kind of standing out where before I was the last picked. Now, like when people wanted me, like we had like martial arts teams trying to sponsor me, and like now they're talking about wanting to put me on TV. Like that made me feel, kind of a certain way, and I like that. And I was so scared to lose that it pushed me to work harder. So when there was mornings where I didn't want to get up to go run, and I would just think like he's running, not even like, oh, I need to run because I'm going to be this. I was like, he's running right now. They get me up and run. And when I wanted to stop, I'm like, oh, he's doing that. So I was always thinking about not just the opponent, but just that if I don't do that, I didn't want to ever like go back and if I got beat, I didn't want it to be like, shoot, I should have ran that day, or I should have. I just wanted to know that if they beat, they're just better, or better on that day. But I didn't want it ever to be on me, and that was because I was scared of losing.
yes, but those are all things you can control. I love that you said that. For every athlete out there, like that is gym, because you can control so much, and I think we forget that because we're constantly giving our power away and our control away. But there's so many things that you can control that are within your reach, by just showing up consistently, giving it your all consistently. So I love that you touched on that. Oh my gosh.
It just
Chills.
becomes part of who you are, right? Then it's like you
Yeah,
don't even think
exactly.
that you're doing it. It's just happening, right? I mean, these guys do it too. I mean, I even just seen it. Just we've only been working together now for about a year, but I see the how the mindset is, and honestly, it's like a reminder for myself of like how I need to be. Like it keeps me sharp. Like iron sharpens iron.
Yes,
I
it
feel like I
does.
feel like we get he gives that to me for sure.
Yes, well, talk to me about that because you've also had incredible success launching something that most people do not see success in, a sneaker brand, Android Home. Am I saying that correct?
Yeah, yeah. Perfect.
Amazing. Okay, thank you. Like, first of all, sneakers are fire, but
Thanks.
like what was that like? Just even embarking on a shoe journey, like were you a sneakerhead? Like, what got you into that?
Yeah, I've always loved fashion and style, right? It was part of the culture growing up, right? I would watch, living on the West Coast, we were inspired by the East Coast rappers like Run DMC and LL Cool J and Slick Rick. And how do we get that look here? And it was just almost impossible. But if you scored a Kangol hat or shell toe Adidas, you were the man, right? And so I just kind of love that feeling growing up. And my dad, luckily he supported me and we'd go hunting, for Jordans or the Patrick Ewing, all that stuff that really kind of motivated me to do well in school, right? It's like, you'll be able to play sports and I'll get you those sneakers that you want, right? And so I kind of did that. And what ended up happening is I kind of just built my own personal style throughout the years, and people would compliment, say, "Oh, Jav, he's kind of stylish dude and whatever." And I was like, "All right, it's just." It never really mattered much to me because it was just kind of who I was showing up to be. I enjoyed it. It wasn't until, you know, maybe 10 years in Hollywood that I was meeting a lot of like successful entrepreneurs with their own clothing lines, their own brands. And I was like, man, like, at first I was in the music and entertainment space trying to work with artists and rappers, and I was doing a bunch of that stuff. But then I was like, man, this guy has his logo on a shirt and it's in the stores, right? I started to connect these dots and I was like, that's crazy, because I've always loved that. I've always loved brands and cool stuff. So because I was in the nightlife, I was curating these environments and these spaces where you would have musicians, producers, fashion designers, streetwear, skaters, right? All these kind of like different walks of life. And I just being curious, I just started asking questions like, how did you do that? Like, what did you do? And, luckily I had dear friends that have really successful clothing lines at the time, like Nick Diamond from Diamond Supplies, San Francisco native, and this guy named Mega from Black Scale, another San Francisco native, but they're all in LA kind of. So I went to them, I was like, how do you do this? Also, I got to mention him because he was really an inspiration and kind of opened his doors, was Jonas from LRG. And LRG was kind of like the premier skate urban crossover brand, kind of when it went from FUBU to like streetwear. Jonas was right there in the center of that. And we had the same birthday. We do our parties together and celebrate. But, he's worth $400 million, and he's, 25, 26 years old. I'm like, fuck, how did you do that? Right. And he opened up, this is how you do it. There's manufacturing, all these kind of things that I just kind of went, wow, I can do this too. Right. Because now I'm thinking, shit, if you can do it, I can do it. Right. And, and so it took a while, right? It took some confidence. This was kind of early challenge for me, was like getting out of the imposter syndrome. Like, I'm not a designer. I didn't go to, FIT, or I didn't graduate from college. I had all these like roadblocks, these layers that said, you're not going to be taken seriously, or you're not going to be credible, because I wanted to do something luxury. I wanted to do something of high quality, not just kind of print t-shirts and shoot them out the door. And so I had to do some soul searching and some like, mirror work, and be like, are you gonna cower to your fear, or are you're gonna show up for yourself and fucking go after it, right? And I made the decision to show up, not but I was trembling, to show someone my first sneaker. And after a bold trip to China, which at the time there was no Alibaba, there was nothing. This was 2005, right? This was like random. I landed in China, and I'm like, I don't speak the language, and I don't know where I'm going, what I'm doing. And to then sell that company, for multiples, 10 years later, just, kind of speaks about the journey from knowing absolutely nothing to learning along the way, along the path, staying diligent, staying committed to the belief. Yeah. I mean, I got hurt so many times financially, or bad decisions. We wired this manufacturer like 150 grand, and it was the wrong account, and we never got the money back, and we were scrambling because now the money was gone. Like we had, had a small team, and we had to grind through all those challenges. But ultimately, I built a brand that was the first in class of its style. I'm widely, or probably maybe not widely, but I'm known as kind of the first Afro-Latino man to have a luxury sneaker brand, a successful luxury sneaker brand, one that was in like Nordstrom's and Barney's and Harrods in the UK, just a global brand. And I inspired a legion of now what's called luxury streetwear, right? Kind of in that gap between the streetwear and the luxury brand. So now we see like, or we, it's been a while, but Kanye filled that gap, and Pharrell, and there were a bunch of other guys that said, hey, this is an actual space that we can thrive in, Virgil. And so this was kind of my idea when they weren't really thinking like this yet. You know, Pharrell had like Billionaire Boys Club, which was a skate brand, right? It was just a skate brand. And so, and ice cream. And I was thinking high end. I was thinking Rodeo Drive or like, you know, like high end luxury leather and, you know, really kind of, and, you know, it's not my background, right? I didn't grow up wealthy or rich or anything. Like it was just kind of like a desire to think big, you know, and that was kind of what drove me in that direction.
That's
Can I just
exactly.
say something that he forgot?
Please.
What?
He self-funded
Oh, yeah.
self-funded this dream, right? This company, which you know, it's easy to have guts when you're using somebody else's money, but he believed
Say
in
it
himself so
louder.
much that he did this. So when he's talking about, oh, we lost this or we did that, like that
He
was
lost
his money,
his money.
not
Yes.
like it wasn't somebody else's money. And I think that's important for
No, it
people
is.
to
Thank
know.
you. Thank you for that. Because I have a lot of tech folks, my background's in tech and they use a lot of other people's money. And so, and it's
Right.
not easy to get. So still shout out to them, but it is very different. You move
It's
and
different.
that's where that fear, I love that you touched on that because, I embarked on being an entrepreneur, a few years ago, and that is just so real that imposter syndrome, that fear, that, all this stuff that creeps up and you start doubting yourself. But then it's like you have to do that inner work. So I love that you talked about that because you have to remember who you are, and the thing about me is I know I'm a champion, and I'm going to show up in any space that I'm going to show up in, even when it gets hard. So I'm like, okay, I got what it takes. So just keep going forward. And I love that you allowed yourself to be green. I just wrote about this in my newsletter, but being green, I used to ride horses and being new to something, being green, is such a gift. And so I love that you even allowed yourself to do that because a lot of people wouldn't even allow that. They're so comfortable staying stuck, and staying with the familiar. And you embarked on not only a completely new kind of space for yourself that you weren't necessarily born into, but then dominated it, and inspired others. That's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was definitely a time, and I launched that in 2008, and it was pre kind of like social like shopping, and so it was I took some arrows in the back for being first, right? And but I don't have any regrets because it was something that I was learning on like day to day. I didn't have any models, no one to say, hey, I'll do it this way or that way. Actually, all of my friends in the clothing business were telling me, don't do footwear. They're like, don't do footwear. It's the hardest category, right? Because a shoe has to be damn near perfect, right? To
Yes.
fit your foot, and you got to do these different sizes, right? It's like do t-shirts and sweaters, small, medium, X large, right? Like you'll be fine. And I was like, nah, I want to do the hard shit, right? And the more they said I couldn't do it, the more I was like,
No.
the more it excited me, but I was trembling. I did self-fund it. I had a successful, kind of background in nightlife. And so I had been doing a lot of nightclubs and throwing events for top celebrities. And so that's kind of, if someone's wondering, well, how did he make his money? I made it in, doing events and that. And so it's also how I made a lot of those early relationships, was kind of through nightlife and events. So when I did have my footwear brand, it was easier for me to contact or see people in the nightclub and be like, hey man, I got it. I got you a gift, or I got something for you. And because I was kind of the man, they're like, yeah, all right, cool. And they already kind of knew my style. And so they trusted me, even though it wasn't a name brand, right? It wasn't let's say Louboutin, which there was no Louboutin at the
No,
time,
I
right?
just
So you think Jimmy Choo, Louboutin, and
don't any of that.
all these luxury brands that kind of sky high, there was nothing like it. And so they trusted me, and they're like, all right. And so I got early support from Justin Bieber. He wore that so much. I got like probably 50 pictures of him, right? Which we couldn't share it on social at the time because there was no real social proof, right? We just get it clipped out of a magazine or be on some blog somewhere. And but Justin, Usher, like Jay-Z, all these guys gave me the early love and support. And just kind of, I want to touch on it. A lot of the stylists were really good to me, right?
Yeah.
So I want to give them credit
Shout
because
out.
they make a lot of the key decisions for these celebs, right? So they're the ones kind of behind the scenes looking at product and putting outfits together. So a lot of time the artist just gets to wear it, kind of go, yeah, no, and they go and they trust their stylist. So I built a lot of trust in that community with the stylists, and they love me, I love them, and there was like, we got your back. So a lot of what seemed like it was me wasn't really me. It was them supporting me, and that's how I built some of those other
But it was
relationships.
also the energy, your energy.
Yeah, yeah,
Definitely
yeah,
give yourself credit because, energetically you were aligned to that vibration and that's what brought those people, So
absolutely.
that's incredible. Like, no,
Uh,
it did kind of take a toll on your health, building that. Talk to me a little bit about that if you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah, yeah. It was really kind of like I said, I was nervous. I was risking my own money. I didn't want to because I didn't know what I was doing, I didn't want to go and ask for money, right? And I know that there's a different mindset in Silicon Valley and other places, but I really was like, I don't want to lose anyone else's money. If I lose my money, fuck, but I can make it. I can make it again. I can rectify that somehow, some way. But if I lose your money, I don't know how I can pay you back, right? And I don't want to live a lifelong debt to people that invested in me, right? So I just couldn't sleep well taking people's money when I didn't know what I was doing. If I felt like I knew what I was doing, then fine, let's get it. But I say all that to say that caused a lot of stress, I was traveling the world, literally like 24-hour trips from like LA to New York for a trade show, New York to Paris, Paris to Italy, Italy to Singapore, Singapore back to LA, like in, 3 or 4 days, right? So I wasn't really managing my health at all. I wasn't training, wasn't working out, I was either eating like shit or I wasn't eating at all,
Yeah.
right? Because I was in the race and yeah, I ended up, getting a cancer diagnosis, and that shook me up, right? But I also didn't feel well, so it didn't surprise me. I was just like, oh shit. And then on top of that, I had j- created an immune deficiency, an immune disorder called PFAPA, and that just kind of, I say the cancer was the easy thing. The hardest thing was this PFAPA, which caused me to have like recurring fevers. So imagine kind of like the worst flu would pop up in 3 days and then it's gone, right? And there's nothing doctors could do. They, you know, there's, there was no cure, and so I was faced with like the biggest challenge of my life.
Oh my gosh. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. Like when
yeah.
Javier shared his story, with you, Brian, and, how did you decide to join forces with him? Because, boxing played a pivotal role in your healing journey, right, Javier?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I did a lot of stuff to kind of get in the healing space. First, I had to acknowledge that I needed to heal, right? Like, being alpha and kind of being the man, whatever that looks like, really is a detriment when you got to humble yourself and kind of say, I need help, right? I need help, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I can either just kind of act like I got it, or I need to humble myself. And so that was a big challenge. And, you know, but that was kind of something that I had to do in order to kind of just even begin the healing journey.
Mhm. And when he shared that with you, Brian, like, what made you partner with him, or was that around the time that you guys partnered together, or did that happen a little bit later?
it was after he had gone through that and he came to visit. He came to the Bay Area. He was living in Hawaii and he came to the Bay Area to visit. And we, through the years, had always kept in contact, even before social media, bump into him. He'd always be like, oh, you got to come down to LA. You got to come to a party, which I sadly had never made, but they were like legendary that you hear about. I'd hear about these things in the Bay Area all the time. I'm like, I gotta hit Hava. So here he comes, the Bay Area. We had just moved. We had a big gym in Redwood City, like a 12,000 square foot facility that we had shut down after COVID. We lost, probably 80% of our members during COVID. So just the business was different after. So we had moved across the street into this little warehouse, which I self-funded. I self-funded because we were, the landlord was like doubling our rent and kind of forced us to move in 30 days. So we basically built this gym in a month. And so I had been thinking like everything was in my head. So I put this thing together. Hop hits me up and he's like, hey, I'm in town, can I come by? And we had just opened the new space. So he comes through and he's like, oh, like what, how much is it? I'm like, oh, don't worry, come on, we're boys, right? But he was like, dude, I love the vibe of the whole thing. And I was like super proud of that, right? Because I don't have any experience in designing gyms. Designed the Undisputed gyms that we had, but it wasn't anything more than here, right? So here's this guy that's like designing the stage for Usher, right? And he's going in, he's like, dude, I love the vibe and this and that. So that like made me like super proud. So we're talking and he's telling me about some of the we had been talking. I was telling him about some of the troubles that we had post-COVID or pre-COVID, post-COVID. I had some bad investors in a previous Undisputed and just kind of the challenges we took. And that's when he had shared the struggles that he had with his health and how boxing kind of brought it back to here and started kind of going from there.
Yeah, that's accurate. I got sick, kind of sold my company, just got together with my wife and my daughter, and we were just like, what's the next move? Because I can't get back in that space, right? The environment was also a factor because it's just kind of like a really fast-paced, kind of negative environment, to be honest with you, the entertainment space and the fashion. And it was kind of a bit superficial, or a lot superficial. And I just kind of didn't really respect a lot of the people in that space and how they would operate. It's kind of like dog eat dog and social climbing. And I was always just been an authentic dude. Like I would, if you're cool, I don't care if you got, $1,000 sneakers on or you're barefoot, right? Like although I was in the luxury space, like my mindset was never of an elitist. And the circles I was in, the circles that I was curating kind of had that air of we're better than you. And it just never really sat well with my spirit. And so I think a lot of that contributed to my discontent, my dis-ease, right? And so went through the healing journey. That's a whole podcast in itself on everything I had to do to get there, right? I had to try everything to solve that problem. But one of those was just kind of getting out of the environment. And so early COVID, we decided to move to Hawaii, my wife and my daughter. And fortunately, I have a lot of gratitude for Hawaii and the people. They limited travel, so there weren't a lot of tourists. We kind of got that last wave in, which shows that it was meant to be. And we were able to be outside on the beach and hiking without a mask. And our daughter was able to play outside, and we were able to kind of just not be connected to that like really intense energy that was happening in LA with Black Lives Matter and chaos. And there was, shutting down things, and, it was really unsafe. So that was, and I was dealing with like another situation in my life with, I have another child, and there was like court battles and all this stuff. So it was a really intense time to be sick, right? To kind of be dealing with a lot of shit. And, I didn't really want to sell my company, but I had to, right? Because I couldn't do both. And I realized that was the humble in me is like, this has way more legs. I mean, the company's still in business. They're still doing extremely well. And I had to let that baby go, right? And be okay with that. And I wasn't initially, but I had to learn to kind of all this different, I started to study like Eastern philosophy and meditation, and I was doing a lot of breath work. And the first thing I could do was yoga, right? So that was the first thing that I could do in terms of movement, because I was like bad shape. I went to the doctor and he did my blood work. He said, you should be dead. According to these numbers, you should be dead. And I was like, well, I'm not. And so there's still something left. I don't know what it is or why, but I'm still here. And but that also kind of said, all right, if I'm gonna die, then I'm gonna die on my terms. I'm not gonna listen to you and you and you and you and all these doctors. I'm gonna just do the shit that intuitively comes to me and that I gravitate towards. And a lot of that came from what I thought and understood about martial arts, right? It's like this inner peace,
Yes.
this this like mind body spirit connection, right? That a lot of the martial arts has lost that, but that's really what gravitated me towards it, right? It's this philosophy of like total alignment, total peace, and the strength of your fist has to match the strength of your mind and your heart, right? And all these things. And so I was like, I could work out now. I could go run on the beach, but I went and found a gym in Hawaii, and I started to take like jujitsu lessons, and it just kind of like, I was like, this is what I've been missing, right? Had I been doing this while, doing my business, maybe things would have been different, but I wasn't. I didn't have that balance. So I just fully leaned into it, and on the holidays, Summer came here to visit my family, and I hit B up. Like, I think I actually saw him on the street. I was gonna hit him up. I was like, "Hey B," like, "Oh man, where's the gym?" And he's like, "Come by." So he took care of me as usual. I was ready to pay and become a member for 3 months. I was here for the summer. He's like, "No, no, no, just come on, come on, come on," and that inspired me, because I know he's a champion, right? And I'm like, fuck, maybe I can learn from Brian, right? Like maybe maybe he'll throw me a solid and teach me something, right? And he did, and he was wide open. And then that kind of conversation escalated, because I was really interested in him, right? Like, how are you doing and what's going on? And so he just shared the trials and tribulations as an entrepreneur that he's been going through. But I thought, and I still believe he's successful. He's been successful, right? Like, I'm not, this is something that he built. He's kind of laid the ground, the foundation for it. And I just felt like I could add some value, right? That was my proposition to him was, you already did all the work. I just want to add to what you've already done. And he kind of, without hesitation was like, let's do it,
What I thought was great about it too was it wasn't even like he came to me and was like, "Hey, I got this business." We were just hanging out at the house, right? Like, bullshitting, right? And he's like, "Well, what do you?" And when we started Undisputed, we were the only. There was no boutique fitness. There was maybe like yoga studios, but there was no Soul Cycle or Barry's or any of these, Orange Theory, F40, none of this stuff. There was none of that, right? So we were like the original, like heavy bag boxing, kickboxing workouts out there. So we'd been successful, and then we went to try to expand it and try to go worldwide domination. And then COVID hit and this and that. But we were just talking. He's like, "Well, what do you think it is?" Because I had all these things I wanted to do that I just hadn't been able to do. And he's like, "Is it money? Is it help?" And it was like, I was like, "It's help, 100%. I only know what I know. I'm trying to be good at, entrepreneurs do this all the time, right? I'm trying to be the marketing guy, and I'm trying to be the accountant, and I'm trying to teach classes and create content and be a trainer. And I got 3 kids, and I'm trying to do all this, and I am not being great at any of, if I can just focus on what I can be great on and have like some help, I think we can still do something." So then he comes back. So it was nothing. And then he comes back to me, "Hey, I'll throw something at you to see what you think." And he comes in with this deck, like this, like PowerPoint presentation, right? Right. And I was like, "What?" He puts it up on the TV at the house, right? And he's like, this is where I think you're missing. He's like, bam, 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 and just fires off. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. It is all here, but I just don't know how to do it. And he's like, what do you think if we do, if we partner and do this? And I was like, I didn't have to think about it. I was like, fuck yeah, let's go. And
Oh my gosh. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh. You guys,
he
first of
surprised
all,
me.
giving me chills, sharing both your journeys and everything. And I love, no, because it's like entrepreneur, and you guys both know this. This shit is hard. It's hard to go at it by
It's
yourself.
fucking
It is hard, and it takes a toll on you. It constantly tests your gangster. I'm like, you're constandly testing me. But like I love that you guys came together, and that's it. You said something so great, Brian. It's like you only know what you know. And then when you get with someone who has different strengths and a completely different lens, like Javier's literally bringing in a whole new perspective into your world.
but he
Yeah,
knows though, like he knows what it's like to be an entrepreneur in the struggle. And that's where it's not
exactly.
like a suit that comes in and,
No,
busting
no.
out spreadsheets and stuff. He's like been through it. And that's why, it was like really kind of the first partner I ever had that I really truly respected.
Yeah.
And that's why it's working.
yeah.
Well, and it's so easy to partner with someone who can just throw money at it, right? But
Right.
like the real, and don't get me wrong, that's valuable, because we gotta pay bills. But it's like it's so much better when you can truly get a partner that can add to the spaces that you just don't. I mean, there's so much that even myself I think about. I don't know, like, and I'm learning. But I can imagine if I had someone who came in that knew those spaces better than me, I'd be able to soar, and it allows you to focus in and laser focus like you like to do back in on the things that you love to do and that you're just great at. So love that.
B
Oh my gosh.
B's he's the top, trainer, programmer. I mean, it's just there's no real label for him, right? Because he's a world champ, 7-time world champ. How many in-house studios have world champs that are undefeated, right? No one beat him. That's here every day, kind of coaching, helping people from beginners to the elderly to kids to weekend warriors like myself. Was like, yeah, I want to fight. And so, so he's really special in that way, but also like he's had to prop this business up himself, through various iterations for the last 15, 20 years, and I felt as much as I've done, and I'm not done, right? I'm like, this is the next, I kind of made an internal decision, my wife, and I was like, my next goal and my next, iteration of who I am is about helping people, right? I want to help people. I've done some cool things. I got some little, plaques on the wall or whatever, but I don't really felt like I helped anyone. I inspired people, but I didn't help anyone. It just in my world is what I'm saying. So I just want to help people. And the best way I think you can help someone is to help them be mindful of their health, right? Because without your health, you can't do anything. And that's what I learned, the hard way in the pursuit of something that I should have just been managing my health, taking care of myself, taking time for myself. And, I got a little funny thing. I said 50 Cent says, get rich or die trying. But most people are dying trying, right? And not many people are getting rich, but everyone's dying because they're just on this hustle. And I said, I'll sacrifice the money. I'll sacrifice the fame or whatever it is that because it's fleeting and money comes and goes and your popularity comes and goes. But when you help someone, when you impact someone's life, they remember that forever, And so I felt like that's what he's been doing, for 30 years, right? He cares about people, and I want to be next to him because I can learn from that in a way where it's like it's not about the money or how much they're paying, or this or that. It's just like someone comes through that door and they're being bullied or they're sick and they need some support. Like he's always like, come on, come on. I've never heard him say no. And so that inspired me because I've been in Hollywood where they're like, sorry,
They don't even say sorry. They just say
cool
no.
story, but no, right? And I'm like, fuck, I go home and I'm like feeling bad, like, man, we should have helped that person. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. It's like all that other stuff. If it's part of the game. It becomes a cuff, not, but that's not my main focus anymore. It's just helping others through, empowering them through fitness and wellness and mindset,
Yeah.
So that's why I think we're growing quickly. The community's thriving. The people are really happy. Members, are coming like and saying, "Hey, man, this feels different, looks different," and we're excited about that. We're excited about that.
I love it. Well, and you describe Brian beautifully because he's been that way even as a younger guy. He's always cared about people. And so
Yeah,
I love that you touched on that. And I think it's so important in business and it's lost in so many different industries, where we forget that we're all here to help each other, just on a human level. Like
yeah, right.
forget titles, forget business, money, all that. Just on a human level, we're here to help one another. And you think about Brian's legacy, your legacy, it's never one thing, but it's every life you touch. And those aren't my words, those are Dr. Maya Angelou's words, but it's so true. You think about that. It could be even at Starbucks, just an interaction that you have with people. So the fact that like when you talked about this, Javier, like being in an industry that was so superficial, it speaks volumes about you because you were almost allergic to it. Your body
Yeah,
was
you got
literally
sick.
like,
Yeah, body
you
was
know
like,
what
you
I mean?
can't
Your
handle
body
this
was
shit.
reacting like it was like I'm allergic to this shit, and it's because you're authentic, and authentic people just cannot survive in spaces like that. They just can't.
Yeah, no, well said. It was tough, and I was playing the part like an actor, right? But you got to go home and take off the mask and level with yourself and
Look in the mirror.
yeah. When I was looking in the mirror, I wasn't happy, and people would say, "Bro, you're crazy. You got all this, and you got all these people." And I just something wasn't clicking internally, and I think that's I had to make a move. I had to kind of just, and I didn't know what it was. When I moved to Hawaii, I didn't know it was going to be boxing or martial arts. I just kind of stumbled and decided to just go with the flow, and the flow led me back to like the area I grew up in, and I'm seeing old friends and helping people that really need my help, right? And they're inspired by me now in a different way, and they're kind of like, "Fuck, man, help me, right? Or how do you do this?" And I'm like, "Just come, just help me help you." And it's been a lot of fun. Working with Brian is fun. He's an interesting dude, right? He's got his ways, and I see how much effort he puts into like meeting me, right? Because he's been the boss for so long, and this is the way it goes, and he had to be like that, right? When you're kind of don't have anyone to depend on, you got to kind of just do it your way, and he's been super flexible with me on kind of, well, maybe do it this way, or let's hold off on this, or right, like taking some instruction, and same with him. I know he's the expert in the fitness kind of space as a programmer, so I don't touch his programming, right? I don't tell him, "Hey, we should throw more kicks." I don't have any expertise in that, right? Or we should tell people to do more push-ups, right? Like that's his world.
Yes.
I don't touch it, right? And then but he's also kind of respected my world, and said, "All right, what do we do here? How do we do this?" And kind of given me the the capacity to kind of move forward with the brand that he created, Undisputed, and built, and the logo is the silhouette of himself. So I highly respect that because it's risky. It could have been full of shit, and he's had a lot of bad actors come through the door, and he's always been 10 toes down, the most solid, and people aren't always what they say they are. So the fact that he kind of didn't hesitate and took that risk, again, says a lot about him.
You know what it is too, like you know how like when you meet it's not meet somebody, you just know somebody, you just know it's real, right? You know it's
Feel it.
authentic, right? And sometimes we want people to be real, like you meet someone, whether it be a personal relationship or a business relationship, you meet them and you want them to be a certain way, so you almost project that onto that person, but they're not like that. But you're just putting it like, we hired the sales guy one time. I wanted him to be so good. I was like, in my mind, I had like had him to be everything he was. He just wasn't that, like, so with
So
opposite, you know,
true.
like I just felt it like right away. It felt different, you know. So it was like not even like I wasn't even had to really think about it. It was like, let's go right away. Let's start now.
And it's interesting because you get that energetic, alignment. You just feel it and it feels different. And that's how like, and I've had that even with candidates, back in my tech days, scaling early and growth stage startups to now, working my own businesses. It's like you kind of know when someone isn't and when you're like really trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, and then you just know when something just it's like the timing is right. It's like you guys weren't even supposed to connect. He was coming up to meet family, but it's
Right.
just it's that beautiful alignment. Something I wanted to talk to you about, Brian, because I'm so curious about this. I've asked a lot of athletes this, that transition, after being undefeated, after, the lights and the glam and people doing stuff for you and all the stuff that you said felt great, like what, having that level of success, then stepping away from it when your identity is so deeply tied to the sport and all that you do, being a champion, like many athletes struggle with that transition once the lights go out. I mean, their routine changes, they turn to substance abuse. I mean, they turn to so many different things. Like, how did you navigate stepping away from professional fighting? And then what did you learn about yourself during that pivot?
It's hard. I mean, it's hard. You know what happens that, you know, there's a bunch of, I mean, it's hard because that rush that you get winning, you know, I don't know how it is for, you know, winning the big football game or the, you know, the big basketball, but I can imagine it's similar. But as a fighter, like winning at really at any level, but especially when it's at the highest level, that rush, there's like nothing that can match it. There's no drug, there's no nothing that, and I think people chase it.
Yeah.
Um, you know, especially in combat sports when it's just you versus another person, there is an element of death, you know, not to be morbid, but, you know, we think about that as fighters, you know, as you go into the ring, that there's a chance that you might not come out. And you have to think about that going into it as part of your preparation and take it seriously. But because that's out there, you know, when you come out of it successful and you know you're winning and people are cheering, dude, that's all. There's nothing better than it. You know, I mean, I get the chills even just
Yeah, you're
talking
giving
about
me
it, just
chills.
thinking about it, right? But but then, you know, like you said, when the lights go off,
It's
it's
quiet.
hard.
It's that quiet, and I'm like, you see so many athletes. I mean, think about Jordan. I mean, Michael Jordan, he is the GOAT. I don't care. I don't even want to have
Yes.
the arguments
No
about
argument here.
LeBron and
Let's
Kobe and
agree.
all that. Like, don't even try me. Like, it is GOAT is Jordan, okay? But like, and I love Kobe Bryant, but it's we got to give it where it's due. But I mean, even he
But she
went
didn't
back.
bring up LeBron, so
Yeah.
yeah, there you go.
You said Kobe, which you know I'll give you a little bit of credit there, right? But
Well,
Jordan the
but
GOAT
I'm
for
saying
sure.
what the talk is, I'm
Right,
just
right,
the
right.
talk, but it's like even he went back. It's like it's that quiet, that I think it really gets to athletes because their entire identity, and this, Javier, it's like your entire identity is wrapped around this thing that you spend hours upon hours training, doing. Your whole life is centered around it. You didn't even get to any of his amazing parties he was throwing, which I probably attended some, but but I'm like, but you didn't, because you were focused, like, and then to step away from that, you just see so many athletes struggling. They gain weight, they turn to substance, they just, what I believe it is they're so far outside of themselves because they don't know who they are anymore.
I mean, you know, for me, so I did have two comebacks, right? Because one, everybody has a comeback, right? But it part of it at the time was part of it was financially. I at the when I retired because um, my wife at the time had just gotten pregnant, and I didn't want to be a fighter with and have to worry about
Mhm.
about a family to take care of. If one, fighting is such a selfish sport on its own, right? And I didn't feel like it was right to bring someone in that. And I was the sole provider, and if something happened to me in the ring, and then I couldn't provide for my wife and baby, I just didn't want that. So I retired right before my oldest daughter was born. And so, we opened up the gym, and I put the money that I had from fighting, we used that to help open the gym. And but it was a new business. I didn't know what I was doing. It's not like I didn't go to school, or I went to City College for about 6 months and maybe attended 3 classes. Right. But so I didn't know what I was doing. I was kind of learning on the fly too. So I was working all the time, and money was tight. And now MMA is coming on the scene, right? My kickboxing promoter, who was the biggest kickboxing promoter in the world, Scott Coker, was getting into the MMA business. Now they're saying, "Hey, you want to do MMA?" And I'm watching it on TV, and I'm going, I'll kill these guys. There's no way they're gonna catch. There's no way they're gonna catch me. And I'm 34, right? So it's kind of starting to get on the older side of for fighters. And mind also, sidebar, no wrestling. Like my MMA it's boxing, it's kickboxing, and it's wrestling.
Yeah.
Now I did wrestle for 2 years in high school. But I did not win not one match, not one. It was terrible, right? Like I almost won one. I almost won one, but I didn't. I have this fight, right? Everything goes wrong. I broke my hand. And now, when I say couldn't wrestle, I didn't even practice wrestling going into this thing. Like I was like watching MMA on TV, and I'm going like, all right, I'm gonna just be moving around. They're never gonna catch me. And if they do, I'm just going to tie him up, I'm wrapped up, and the referee's going to stand us up, right? So here we get in this MMA fight, come out, boom, hit the guy, break my hand in the first round, right? He picks me up and dumps me down on the ground, and I wrap him up, right? Like I'd practice, right? I'm like looking over at the referee like, all right, hey, stand us up. And he didn't, right? I just kind of spent the whole fight on my back. And so I lost. And I was like, yeah, forget it. It's too late. Like different sport. I'm retiring again, right? In the cast. 3 days later, I'm like, fuck that. I am not going out like that, right? So start training again, and to fight the same guy 1 year later at the same place, break my hand again in the first round, right? Still didn't practice any wrestling, right? But what I did practice was I was practicing takedown defense, right? So every time he tried to take me down, I was like, oh, not this time, right? And so I ended up knocking him out in the last round. There was probably like 20 seconds left, and I was losing because I got like a point taken away for it's the whole mess. But anyway, I was losing, right? So I was losing, and I ended up knocking him out, and that. There was 15,000 people there at the SCP. It was coming back from that loss, which was so devastating to me, even though I tried to justify it to myself saying, it's not my sport, this and that. Like
it's still a loss. Yeah.
It put significant strain on my home relationship. I was not the same person for a year until I could get that out. All that to say, to bring this all back to the original question of the chase of the glory and stuff, right? Was like, that was like my going out there. I couldn't imagine chasing something greater than what I just experienced, coming from that loss and feeling so terrible about myself. And because, I was saying, I felt special when I was doing it, but when you lose, all of a sudden the phone stops ringing. It's different, right? People aren't feeling you on the same level, right? So just to be able to get through, just to kind of overcome that, I couldn't imagine there being a greater high. And then luckily for me is that I had started the gym and had these people that I could put my heart into every day. So it gave me purpose to go, so I could transition from that into in these people. When we train fighters and watch being coaching guys and having them be successful was feeling the rush of like of the win, you know?
Yep. No, I love that you touched on that because it's so interesting, like going from, this incredible high, then going to a loss. A lot of people don't even get to the incredible high. And a lot of times they step away from the sport sooner than they even plan, whether it's to injury or they just get cut, whatever it is. So it's almost like, yes, you may have gotten that loss, but you still got to end on your terms, and on a high, which is dope, So, and then you stepped into something that gave you even more purpose. And I think that is where athletes struggle because they no
Yes.
longer know their purpose or their reason for being. And so, yes, thank you for touching on that.
You
You
don't even know it really when it's happening. Like it's not like you're like, oh, I'm gonna go to the gym because I feel purposeful there, right? It's not like that. But
know,
as you look back, and we're 20 years into this thing, like, and I'm looking back at it, and it's the people that you know they think we're doing something for them, right? But yet you're also, you're filling our cup as well.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think I feel very, very, very blessed that to have that,
Find the parallels in terms of kind of being a nightclub party promoter, and is like you can't imagine the amount of texts and calls I'm getting, for VIP, right? Hey, and it's driving me my anxieties up because I got to respond to everyone, right? And so, but when I stopped, it was crickets, right? And at the time it was happening, it was my anxiety, and I'm like, fuck, so and so's people, were booked out, right? One night we had Drake, Rihanna, Lil Wayne, Jay-Z, like all at the tables, right? And we're getting calls from other celebrities that want to come, and I gotta say no, and like this, there's no more room, right? All the tables are done, like they were sold out, and the venue was really small, like 300 people. So we're not 3,000, 5,000. We kept these really intimate, like high, fly environments where creme de la creme was there, and everybody's competing, and this guy's spending 100 grand, and this guy sees him, and this Jay-Z's like, all right, give me more bottles, right? It was really intense, and but when I stepped away from that, it was like the phone stopped ringing, people stopped texting me, and then I start transitioning to someone else that I was working with, and I'm like, just hit him up, he'll take care of you, he'll take, because I'm not doing that, I'm out. And it was tough because but what it kind of helped me realize is that you got to surround yourself with people that actually care about you,
I was gonna say
that
that.
care about your well-being, not what you can do for them, not what you can give them, right? That's kind of the noise, and so many times we feed into the noise and think it's real. And that was a humbling experience when I was like, shit, nobody cares, nobody's calling, nobody, when I can't give them free shoes, like they're not hitting me up anymore. When I can't, do something for them, the message is left on red, or they're not getting back to me. And so it was something that I'm grateful that I went through, because it helped me kind of really hyper identify real people, right? And so while I could be around all these lofty, whatever heirs, millionaires, billionaires, whatever they are, I shoot straight for the heart, man, and that's what I saw in Bron. I was like, it doesn't matter how much money he has, what he's built, it doesn't. This dude's got a good heart, and I'm happy to kind of be around people like that versus every other fake motherfucker out there that may be able to offer more in the moment or this or that, but they just don't really care about you, and so that I'm happy he had at the time a small family and his wife and kids and people in this community that supported him, because a lot of people lose their mind after that.
Yeah, they don't because they don't have that support. And you touched on something so great and it's so real. It's like when you're up, everybody is around you.
Uh,
You're that light bulb, everybody's around you, that they're all feeding off your frequency,
yeah,
And then when you're down, whether you're sick, whether you're no longer in the sport, it's like no one's calling you. And this is so real for even not people not even in the industries that you guys have been in, just in friend groups. Like
Mhm.
you see so many big friend groups on social media, all these people smiling, cheesing photos and stuff, and those aren't even your real friends, because the minute you go through something real and life brings you down, it's like you have the Ebola virus. Everybody's stepping away from you. So, and
Yeah.
it's real, like, or if you're down, like maybe you lose money, and everybody's like they're shying away from you.
Mhm.
It's so real. And I see it in so many instances, and
It's friends, it's personal relationships too. Like you can see if you're with the real ones. It's like easy
man,
to be with you when you're successfully making much money, you're going
exactly.
this, doing trips, and it's like, oh, when things all of a sudden get hard, right? And we're like, I mean, like sometimes in COVID, it was it was
Scary.
gnarly for us. Yeah. I mean, we
So many businesses. Tell me
yeah.
that. I mean, California, that's why I moved. I moved to Arizona. California was shut down. I mean,
Mhm.
there was restaurants who could barely make it. I mean, one of my favorite restaurants on Santana Row shut down. I was so devastated, I'm like, what?
Oh,
I'm like, what do you mean? But it was because they didn't have that nightlife coming in and people, so many businesses. So the fact that you were able to pivot, speaks volumes about you, because a lot of gyms did not pivot. They're no longer there. So shout out to you. Like, talk to me about this too, like just the culture you guys built, and I know a large part of that is Brian, because you've been doing this for so long, and then Javier, you came in. Like, talk to me about your culture because you guys are both bringing different flavors, from the different industries that you've worked in. Like, what's your culture like? Because some gyms can be a little toxic, they can be a lot of ego, So, like, talk to me about that.
yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting you say that because although our paths were different. They are very similar. Like I'm a huge music person, right? So music is forefront in the gym, right? The fighting, the music, that whole vibe is similar in a way to the nightclub scene and that music industry. We have like a, kind of I mean, it's almost like nightclub meets fight club type environment here, right? The music is and so there was a lot of similarities in that sense. And the culture, through the years, it's gone like this, right? Just like you said, trainers with big egos and this that. I think the this is probably in the 20 years that we've been doing this is probably the best it's ever been. And we have egos in the gym. It's a gym full of fighters, right? And but everyone respects each other
Mhm.
and that makes it drama free. It's like so many times people, because they're not confident with themselves, they got to put someone else down to make themselves feel better, and that disrupts the culture, right? And that's why gym trainers have a hard time. I don't train with him because now he sucks. Oh, come train with me, right? We're like, you should go train with him. He has a lot of great things to offer, right? And if you want to come back and train with me, great. Or try. We respect everyone on the team, and then like I was saying earlier, he said all those great things about me, and I feel the same way. So it's like when he says something, I know it's coming from the right place. So whether I agree with it or not, I respect him, and it translates down, it trickles down to the culture, like parents and their kids. If you're good, it trickles down to the kids, right? Right. But if we weren't getting along or didn't respect each other, it trickles down to the staff, trickles out to the members that come in. Um,
You hit on a key word, and I think it's lost in a lot of industries, and it is respect. And I think that has to be the baseline for any great relationship, any great business, anything that you're building. So I love that you touched on that. And I think it's contagious too. Because, when you two respect each other and I can feel it, like I can tell when people are, BSing me. It's because I've talked to a lot of people my whole life, but I can feel the authenticity between you two, and more importantly, the love, there's there's a respect and there's a love between you that you can't buy that. You can't manufacture that. So
That's why I wanted you to, when you talked about bringing him out, I was like, God, I think he would be great to be
yes,
on with us, because
I'm so grateful.
forget
I'm
about
so
story, I mean,
grateful.
story's amazing, but just it's team.
No,
Yeah.
It's Rocky and Apollo, except I'm Apollo.
Yeah. He's definitely Apollo. I just look like Apollo. No, Brian, the one thing that I initially loved about what he had built was the community, right? He had his own deck, right? He had a fundraising deck and stuff that he shared with me. And in there he had testimonials. And they were like, I've been with Brian for 10 years, and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be able to have, done this. And you hear these things and it's not unusual, but what was unusual to me was that they followed him gym after COVID. Some of them, many of them, these core community members and members didn't stop paying. So even though the gym was closed and he couldn't really service them the way that he had, promised, at no fault of his own, they kept their membership, meaning they were still trying to support him just because of what he had done for them, right? Created this environment and help get them fit or whatever it is, and they're still here today. So many of them, and so many have come back, right? Because some kind of drifted and tried other domains, which we encourage, right? If you want to go try Pilates or yoga, go ahead, right? We support you. And when you want to come back, the door is always open. And so, but that was one of the key things that made me want to kind of team up with him, was that community, in the nightclub and fashion, right? It's all about, customer service and really, appreciating your customer. And so he had already had that foundation set, and I feel like I just kind of bumped it up a level. Like, we got to really, really take care of our customers and honor them, and support them and fist bump them and make sure that they feel appreciated, because without them there's no you, right? There's no this, and they've proven that throughout the years. So this community here is unparalleled. Anybody comes in for the first time, they're like, holy shit, this is dope, right? And it's like everyone's friendly, and people are really polite, and people are friends outside of this gym and hang out and all that stuff, and yet they're getting results. Like, it's not just a joke gym. That 60 minute
yeah.
that 60-minute class that he programs is fucking hard. It's hard for me too, right? And I try not to take it often because it's tough, So people come in and they get the results.
Yeah.
They meet, people of similar mindsets. Here in Silicon Valley, right? There's so many different types of characters, right? There's the tech bros, and there's the, some hood dudes, and there's some gritty fighters from the streets, and then there's the soccer moms, right? And the aloe yoga outfits. And it's like, they all meet here. They're all the same. They all smile. They all kind of share space and learn from each other. And that's why I love this, because this is, and there's kids. My mother comes here. She's 78 years old.
Wow.
And she's treated like a queen, right? My daughter trains here. She's 10, right? And so I'm like, that. My wife trains here. She's, going to be 50 this year. So it's like, this is the kind of space that I enjoy, want to be. I'm here every day, pretty much, right? Like, and I don't have set hours, right? I'm not like on the clock, but I'm here because I love the vibe. I love the people, and they've shown me love, which is kind of a testament to how much they trust him, because they don't know me from Tom, right? I come in and I'm kind of starting to be a little bossy or, change things, and they're just like, all right, Brian's guy, like, he's part of this community and this opportunity here. And so I've had zero resistance, and been met with nothing but love from the community.
For me, like, it's like you could do it for so long, and people come in, not that you forget, but it just becomes part of, like, you don't always remember, like,
No.
the effects that you're having negative, positive or negative that you have on people. And it was like he came in, it just also just kind of refreshed me, like here we are back now 2006 where it's like everyone's getting a fist bump and like, hey, how's it going? Like doing the whole thing. And um it's good. He's like kind of brought me back to basics, and
Yeah.
that feels really good.
But that's what that new set of eyes, it's like
Mhm.
I used to love scaling early and growth stage startups because you get the legacy, employees and they're just doing their job. They're doing it well, but they're just going through almost the motion,
Oh,
not
right.
even knowing that they're going through the motion, and then you get these new employees that come in with new set of eyes, new ideas, fresh energy. And it just when you get the right person, it really revitalizes the space. And so it's like I feel like he's doing that for you, because you've been doing it so well for so long, so and it's a real testament to the community that continues to support you. I'm proud of you. I wanted to tell you
Thank
that
you.
on this show. I'm so proud of you. So I am. And you talk about all the different levels that come into the gym. Like I love that you touched on that because I can imagine, they go to your social media, they see people like, Frank Gore and Michael Crabtrees and all these, people that you've worked with and all these great boxers, coming in and fighters and stuff. It's intimidating. But, talk to us about your member, like are there real beginners coming in here and, is it accessible, like do they come in? Is it intimidating? Like talk to us a little bit about that for members who might be interested that are in the area.
Yeah, I mean, so 70% of our clientele is women, um,
No way.
which is always been it's always been like that. It's yeah, it's amazing. Like and this gym, I know it can still be intimidating, although this is it's bougie, right? I mean, the original gym used to be I think more intimidating for people. But like Hob was kind of touching on, it's like once you walk in the door, it feels it feels like home, right? You just have to take that step through. From the outside, it's like, "Eek," and then boom, you're in. It's like, oh, okay, feeling it, right? And that was kind of always the thing is that we make people like feel welcome, like you're welcome into your house, and that's how people get into it. And as far as the workouts and stuff, they're hard, right? I mean, the workouts were based off of my workout regimen, just condensed into a group fitness class. So
Is
it's
it for
structured.
beginners? Like if a woman, like let's say someone who hasn't worked out in maybe a few years, like they come in, like are they able to take a class and last? Like,
1,000%. Here's how,
okay.
right? Everything's based is time based, right? So whether you're
Good.
doing one rep or you're doing 100 reps, we all start together, we all end together, whatever we're doing, right? So it's built to be where you ever see the Karate Kid?
Yes, of
All
course.
right, all right, yeah, I gotta get my Karate Kid honesty, right? Right. So you got wax on, wax off, paint the fence, right?
Mhm.
What was happening in there, right? When you watch it initially, it's like you think it's Hollywood bullshit, or at least I did, right? But as I got older and started looking at it, I was like, what there is something behind that. What he's teaching, is he's teaching muscle memory, right? So first you don't know what the hell you're doing, right? You come in, you're painting the fence. Why the hell am I painting the fence, right? Well, he's teaching them how to block, right? By making these movements. Instead of like breaking it down and being like, all right, this is how you block, and you're gonna do it like this, which can be boring for members. They want to come in, they want to sweat, and they want to. We just have them start doing it, right? You just follow along. We have TV screens that you're following, instructors, cueing them and instructing them. People don't know what the hell they're doing at first, right? They just know they're doing it. But each time they come in, they're hearing the instructor's voice, they're hearing these cues, and they're doing these moves. And now what seemed like, kind of like just a big, flimsy, chaotic mess is now kind of refined into these movements where all of a sudden they can do it. It's like that. All of a sudden, it's like I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Now all of a sudden, now I can kickbox, right? And it's this structure the way we set this up is why you can be never work out or you can be a pro athlete and we can work out side by side and do this thing and be successful together.
That's so dope.
Yeah, and I'm speaking kind of from the outside looking in when I came in and still learning is like the way he designed the classes allows for people to measure their progress every time they come. They can see how much better they're getting, right? Because maybe in that 30 seconds you could only do 10 punches, right? And then you coming in for a month, you realize in that same segment now you're doing 100 punches, right? And so you're actually measuring your progress. So if you're a beginner and all you can do is 10 punches in this segment and 2 push-ups in this segment, and right, and the guy next to you, the girl next to you is doing 50 push-ups, it's fine, right? That's what I love is like, this is your world.
Yeah.
Just follow the training, do the best that you can, and you keep coming, you'll see, like it's evident how much better you're getting. And so that works for beginners because they can train next to a pro, learn a little bit. Okay, cool. I see how he's doing or she's doing it. Do it myself. It's up on the screen. He's walking around making corrections. It's a beautiful place to learn, how to actually fight, how to, kickbox and box, and yet still get that, strength and cardio and conditioning in that all these other places are selling, right? So a lot of other places are only selling that. Where here, Brian's built where you're actually leaving. You're going to leave. You come here enough. You come and you dedicate your time. You're going to leave with the strength and conditioning and the six-pack abs and whatever your goals are. But you're also going to know how to kick somebody in the face if you need to, right? And you didn't have to kind of like have this Mr. Miyagi style thing. You're just in the vibe, learning
Music's playing,
like, and you're just kind of like, oh shit, I can. It's one of my selling points, right? I go, you can get fit anywhere. Go home and just go in the backyard, right? Go do push-ups. You'll get fit wherever you want to get fit if that's what you want. But here you're going to leave with an actual skill that could help you in the outside world, right? Like I don't know how much bench press is going to help you or squats in the real world, but for women, I think that's why there's so many women here is they get that conditioning and the cardio and the strength, and they also kind of feel more confident. They can walk out at night and in the parking lot and say, all right, well, I could potentially fend somebody off for 15 seconds or 30 seconds. That could save your life, right? Versus cowering down, not knowing what to do, not having reaction time, freezing. Like, here you're learning reaction. You're learning to respond to things immediately. And it's something that my wife loves. She's like, man, I just feel more confident. She's not Mike Tyson. She's not Brian Schwartz. You're not going to win any. But all you need in some of these scenarios is that 5, 10, 15,
Literally
20 seconds to fend someone off and run or get help. And so I love that. And my daughter's here. I'm like, you're gonna learn. You don't have to fight ever. Hopefully, you never have anything happen or you don't encounter an aggressor like that. But you're gonna be able to like defend yourself for a bit. And
I
that's
love that. It's like you're meeting people exactly where they are, coming in. And I think that's such a selling point for women. Whereas a lot of other gyms, and even I'm guilty of going into them and just feeling like out of whack, like a fish out of water. It's like you don't know like what to do next. There's like all these machines, you don't know if you're using them right.
right.
And then you're constantly thinking people are looking at you, and no one's looking at you, by the way. They're too busy with their own stuff. But it's like,
Right.
but it's that feeling. And so it's like you come into a space like this where I love that it's time-based. And I think that already is such a game changer because then people aren't thinking about like, oh, I need
behind.
to, yeah, it's like they're not thinking about all the stuff. So I love that. That's so brilliant.
There's two things, right? And so one is the workout never gets easier because
Yes.
better shape you get in, the more you're
The
gonna
more
do.
you
So you got
do.
guys that have been coming for 20 years and
Wow.
they're still tired because now they're just doing more reps. But you know, everything that Hob said is true. And we kind of trick people a little bit in a way, like to learn that's like peel back the layers of the onion. Yes, you're getting all that, but on the surface level, right? You know, imagine you got 25 bags, they're all filled with people, right? Where the lights are turned down, the music's on, and now we're hitting you with like, all this stuff. And, there's a learning curve to it, so, I always tell people like, it's a skill that you're learning, right? It takes time to develop the skill, but once you have it, you're going to have it forever. With this too, it's not like you're learning this instructional lesson, like, not to, I'm a martial artist, so I love this stuff, right? But like martial arts class can be slow, sometimes, we're learning something, you're trying to understand these philosophies. That this kind of gets taught through these repetitions, right? And through the cues. So you walk away with all that stuff on the surface level. You're like, fuck, I'm sweaty, and that was a good workout, and it was fun, and this and that. So
you get to lose yourself a little bit from your day, like I can imagine how.
Yeah, so it's fun. I was kind of looking at it like the undisputed workouts, like now you meet a good looking person, you're like, oh, that they're really attractive, right? And you talk to them, and they're kind of dumb, right? And then they're not so attractive anymore, right? Like, but then, or you meet someone that's attractive, and then you see they have something to say, they're intelligent. Also, now they've even become more attractive. That's how I kind of feel the undisputed workout is. We're like the
it was a good one.
We're like the hot chick with the brain.
That's hilarious. Oh my gosh, man! The two of you. First of all, I love your energy, and like I just am amazed at all the pivots that you guys have done, the highs and the lows, and still swinging, still coming out on top. Like, what's one piece of advice or, maybe some wisdom that you can impart on our audience that has stayed with you through all of it, as you pivot, as you got some losses, some wins? Like, what's one piece of advice or wisdom that's really stayed true to you?
I would say stay true to who you are, what your beliefs are, what you believe. Try not to get swayed by what everybody else is saying. You believe something, you stay true to it, right? Doesn't matter if people tell you you're crazy or it's never going to work or anything like that. If you believe it, believe it and stay focused on it, it will happen, right? Like, I mean, so many times this is, whether it be for me, it was business and as my martial arts career, they said, that's it, you shouldn't be doing this, but I believed it. And even when things were really bad, I never in my heart felt that I was wrong on the direction this should be going or where it is. So I believed in myself, and I don't always necessarily say that or put that out there, but behind closed doors, I do look in the mirror. I remember who the fuck I am, and I believe it, and it's a real thing to practice,
Mm-hmm. Damn, that's good. Before you even answer, Javier, that I mean, that's money right there, and it's so true. Like if you don't have that self-belief, like you can't even fully show up, and other people won't even believe you either. So it's like it has to start with you. Like who you see in that mirror when that reflection back, it's like, I say this often. I think it's, people that train in kind of individual sports, I was a track and field athlete. It's like that's all I had. I only had myself. Like there wasn't another person that could run the race for me. Like it was me and my lane, And so it's going back to just that self-belief. Like I always believe I can do anything. Like I mean, I would apply to jobs. I didn't even have the credentials, but in my mind, I could do that shit,
Yeah. And listen, just to put this out there for people that are listening, it's not like it's always like that 100% all the time. Like there's definitely times where you doubt yourself. You have to regulate that, right? I mean, yes. Every fight I ever had, I was like, Brian, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? This is it. This is the last time you're here. I was so nervous, right? Like this, but I have to self-regulate that fear, right? Like it's controlling the fire. I tell my son this is controlling the fire, right? You can let the fire take over you, right? It gets out of control, burns everything down. Or you can control the fire, right? Then it becomes this strong, forceful tool, right? So you got to control it within, and it's just finding the way to do that. It's not, and
Leaning into the fear.
that's it.
I think that's the thing. I never like, even because I was not, I started track late, and like I remember like I had all the odds against me. Everybody was so much faster. They had other people to train with. I didn't have anybody to train with. Like just so many things, so many obstacles, but I leaned into the fear. And I was like, I know what I put in. And I think that's the thing. Like, even when people come to your gym, it's like, what you put in, those reps, when you're really giving it your all and when you're not, And so when you're able to show up and you know who you are, it's like, that's a recipe for success no matter what
Sometimes
happens.
it's just showing up. I think
Yeah, that's
he
it.
posted the other day. He didn't want to be here, but he showed up. Sometimes it's just
Just showing
that,
up.
right? Like it's just adding to your
Reps.
yep.
Yeah. What about you? Tell me.
Yeah, no, those great points. I totally agree with you both. I think the only thing I would really say that really shifted me in my life is to lean into the fear, right? Like use fear as an indicator. That's a green light, go, right? Most people look at fear as like red light, stop. And so you probably wouldn't have this podcast if you didn't go through the fear, right? They're like, oh shit, why would anybody watch my podcast? Or why all these things pop up, but that's the green light, go, right? If it feels too good, right, you're like, yeah. Oftentimes you're not putting that like energy into it that you would if you know that, hey, I gotta really dial this in and focus. And so lean into the fear, use that as an indicator to go, and then master your mind, right? Like I'm a big mindset guy. Like without the mind, nothing else works, right? Like literally, mindset sends all the signals to eat, to take a shit, right? Like the mind is like saying it's the master of the universe, essentially, of your universe. So if you can't master and regulate your own, mind and tell it what you want to do, then it'll just do whatever is most comfortable, right? It'll stay away from that marathon. It'll keep you out of that boxing gym. It'll stop you from going and doing that podcast because it just wants comfort. It just wants to feel safe. So mastering the mind is paramount. Then the body will follow, like all that other shit, the business, all the happiness, the relationships, all that will follow if you can just master your mind. And so that would be my advice is like get active in the mind science, right? Like regulate your mental health, right? Get help if you need that, right? Whatever it is, but it all starts with the mind. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that.
Well, and I think to quote Teddy Atlas, right? This famous boxing trainer. It's like we run from the fire, but we're firemen. We got to run towards the fire, right? You run towards the fire, and that's how you get over these right? These humps and be successful. You gotta be firemen.
Firemen. Run towards the fire.
That's it.
That's the difference. That's what makes you different, Damesha. That's what makes Brian is we run towards the fire, and everybody else is standing away from the fire, going, "Oh, it looks hot. I could die. I could burn." Yes, all that is part of running in the fire, but you could also help someone, save someone. You could also create something in that fire that leaves a legacy that that you're proud of when you get out. So it's worth it. Just run into the fire,
Where the phoenix is born. Right?
Yeah.
Yes. Look, and I'm in Phoenix. I feel it. I feel it. I love it. Oh my goodness. What a delicious conversation. This conversation was so dope. I so appreciate you. Like I'm so proud of you. And after learning all the stuff that you have done in your life, I'm proud of you too. You guys both, man. I'm so inspired. So thank you. Thank you so much.
We're inspired by you.
Yeah,
Proud of you
thank you.
too. I mean, this is amazing that how successful you've been with this. This is really feel blessed and honored to be on here.
Thank you. Oh my gosh.
Appreciate
To
it.
the audience, thank you. I mean, it's only been a couple years, but just all the folks who keep tuning in and the new folks who are going to tune in after I get these two legends on. I'm so grateful. So thank you.
Yeah, we're grateful too. Thank you.
Thanks.
We really appreciate you. And keep doing the work. You're
it.
crushing it.
Thank you. And everyone, as always, have an amazing Sunday. Bye.